What's going on, guys? Zog here, and today I have a really special video for you guys. So today we're going to be looking over all of Acheron's information as of right now. Of course, right after this video is being posted. I think she's coming out like a day or two right after this video. So this video is going to kind of be all the information you guys should know to prepare yourself to pull for Acheron. We're going to be going over everything that we know as of right now. Of course, all this is subject to change, but I'm sure the majority of this stuff will not change by the time she actually comes out and she is pullable on her banner. But yeah, we're just going to go over everything. So let's just start off with her base kit. As you guys can see it down below already. She starts with 1100 base HP, almost 700 attack right there, as well as 437 defense. Some normal stats right here. A pretty nice amount of defense, honestly. Pretty good attack as well, especially for a kind of nihility, but she's basically a destruction character, as we'll kind of see here for the rest of her kit. She's really does a lot of damage. She is a lightning character, as you guys probably know that as well. She's a Galaxy Ranger, a really cool character as a part of this story right here. Now these are going to be the materials you're going to need to have for her ready if you guys are pulling for her, so you can completely max her out, level 80, all the traces and stuff like that as well. This is for her Lightcone, so these are the materials you're going to need for maxing out her Lightcone if you guys are getting her Lightcone. You're going to need almost 4 million credits. A bunch of these character EXP things. You're going to need 289 of those. I'm sure you guys already have a few of those, so you're not going to have to worry about that, but 289 of the purple EXP for her level, 8 tracks of destiny, and then you're going to need this amount of these things you should be farming for Acheron. I already have actually a separate video out on my channel if you guys don't know where to farm these tracing or these trace materials, because these are very important. But if you do not have these already and you are planning to pull on Acheron, I highly recommend you guys start to grind these, because these are really vital if you really want to get her trace materials leveled up really highly off rip as soon as you pull her. Then you're going to need 65 of these lightning staff things as well, and then 12 of these borehole of the planet disasters, I believe it's called. And then you're going to need 56 of these dream bolt components, and then 71 of the dream valves, and then 73 of the purple version of these valve things here too. And these you can get from the assignments. It's also part of the other video I already have posted on my channel. So if you guys want to learn more about how to farm the Acheron materials that you'll need to get her fully leveled up and all that good stuff, definitely check that video out. I actually have a link for it in the description of this video if you guys want to see where you can grind out all these materials. So yeah, that's what the materials look like for her, and this is of course the same stuff for her Lightcone as well. You will need some money there for the Lightcone as well. Not 3 mil though, but you will need some money for that as well. So now we'll take a look at kind of what her skill does and her basic attack and all that stuff. So her basic attack is nothing crazy. It deals lightning damage equal to 100% of Acheron's attack to a single enemy. So pretty straightforward with that, as we get with most basic attacks in Honkai Star Rail. But then her skill right here, it gains 1 point of slash dream. And now this slash dream right here, this is very important, because this is a part of her kit and she inflicts debuffs with her kit. And the debuffs are very important, because we'll get into it later, but her ultimate is unique to her in that it only is obtainable through getting her debuffs and through other characters applying debuffs on her team. So the only way she can access her ultimate, which does the most damage in her kit, is by getting debuffs by applying them with her and other characters on your team. So yeah, she inflicts 1 point of slash dream, and then inflicts 1 stack of crimson knot on a single target enemy, and deals lightning damage equal to 160% of Acheron's attack to them, as well as lightning damage equal to 60% of Acheron's attack to adjacent targets. So a target to the left and the right of the main target that you're hitting. So pretty good damage for her skill. Does 160% damage to that main target, and then 60% to the rest of the targets to the left and the right. So this is her ultimate now we're going to talk about. So let's look at that right now. This is the most important thing that I would say that you need to know about Acheron and her kit, because her ultimate does the most damage. It's an AoE. It has like 3 slashes, and it has 1 final slash that will hit all the targets, and that does the most damage, I believe. But so what her ultimate does is it sequentially unleashes Rainblade 3 times. So that's the 3 slashes that you could choose where you hit with that, and then the Stygian Resurge 1 time. And that's that last and final hit, I believe, that will just hit all the enemies, as you guys just saw down there. And it deals lightning damage up to 372% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy. That's where you choose where to hit, and then deals lightning damage up to 300% of Acheron's attack to all other enemies. So the Rain Blade does is it deals lightning damage equal to 24% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy and removes up to 3 stacks of Crimson Knot. Yes. So this is what her Rain Blade does. So the 3 slashes that you get with her ultimate, it does 24% of Acheron's attack. So you're thinking like, wait, that doesn't do a lot of damage at all. But the Crimson Knots that you leave on the enemy really gives you more damage here. And then of course you get the Crimson Knot by applying debuffs with her. And I believe you also get the Crimson Knots from applying debuffs with the rest of your teammates that you have on the squad with Acheron. But it might explain here. So what it does is it, of course, 24% attack each time you use it on an enemy, and then removes up to 3 stacks of Crimson Knot on the target. And then when the Crimson Knot is removed, immediately deal lightning damage equal to 15% of Acheron's attack to all enemies. And for every stack of Crimson Knot removed, the damage multiplier for this damage application is additionally increased up to an increase of 60%. So you're going to get a 60 times multiplier on top of the 15% damage that you're doing to all enemies. Once you get that Crimson Knot removed. So obviously you're going to get a lot of damage when you remove these Crimson Knot stacks that she gets from using her skill on them. I probably won't go into detail and do the whole crazy calculations and all that stuff, but you could infer, but the 60% damage multiplier on top of the 24% that you get from removing 3 stacks when you hit that target, if you do have 3 stacks of it, and then you do deal 15% more damage to all the enemies when you remove 1 single Crimson Knot. But yeah, it's a lot of damage. That's all you guys need to know. And obviously you guys might know that she actually has weakness damage. She goes through enemies' toughness, which we'll get into real quick over here. But we'll look into Stygian research right now. So it deals lightning damage equal to 120% of Acheron's attack to all enemies and removes all Crimson Knots. And that's that final slash, the big slash that you get that will just hit all enemies that you can't choose where to hit it because it'll just hit all the enemies. And it also removes all those Crimson Knots. And then the Crimson Knots cannot be applied to enemies during the ultimate. So yeah. So when you apply the ultimate, it removes all the Crimson Knots on all the enemies that you get through by debuffing with her skill, as well as debuffing with the entire team. So when you do use that ultimate, all the Crimson Knots that you have and that you've been building up on these characters that you're fighting, the enemies, all those Crimson Knots will be lost basically. But what it gives you in turn is more damage with her ultimate. So the more Crimson Knots you have on each enemy, and say you really want to take down that boss and you've been hitting that boss over and over again with your skill, the more Crimson Knots you have on that boss, by the time you do the ultimate, you're going to be doing a lot more damage. Note this right here. This is a bunch of just information in terms of calculations that she's going to do, with her damage and stuff like that. You guys can read that if you want to. But the total toughness damage on the ult is 90 for a single target, which is very, very good. So she goes through enemies' toughness. So regardless of what kind of elemental kind of thing they are for the enemy, she's going to do damage to them no matter what. She's going to be doing a lot more damage, kind of like Ruan Mei. I believe that's what her ult does as well. She makes so that your rest of your team can just slice through enemies regarding their elemental weakness. So she has that actually built into her kit. So now I'm just thinking how crazy it would be to have, 2 Nihility teammates, or if you have Acheron E2, which we'll get into later, you only have to run one Nihility teammate. So maybe you run like, I don't know, like a Pela, a Ruan Mei, and then like a Sparkle or something like that. Like, we might see groundbreaking numbers for the amount of damage that you could do with Acheron. But anyways, yeah, so she does 90 total toughness damage on that ult, and then 60 AoE for the AoE, of course. And if you guys don't already know about what the toughness is, it's the weakness damage, and Acheron ignores all elemental weaknesses to directly damage the bard during ult. So yeah, that's what that does right there. So she's gonna ignore any type of weakness that anyone has, and she's just gonna do way more damage to them, regardless of what kind of weakness the enemy might have. But right here, we'll get into her talent. And her talent is pretty interesting. This is kind of just what her kit is basically about. Of course, like we just mentioned before, she is not reliant on getting her ult by any regular means compared to any other character. She gets her ult by reaching the slash dream that she gets through applying debuffs with her skill, as well as other characters on your team that you need to run with her basically. If you guys don't already know, you need to run her with Nihility characters, which we'll get into later. I believe that's also a part of her talent and her kit. But you need to run her with Nihility characters, and it's really vital for that because not only do you get more damage with that, but you also get the ability to apply more debuffs because that's what Nihility characters do. But yeah, we'll look at what her ult does right here because it's very, very unique in what it does. So when Slash Dream reaches 9 points, the ultimate can be unleashed. During the ultimate, depletes enemies' toughness regardless of weakness types and reduce all enemies' all type res by 20% until the end of the ultimate. So you're gonna get a 20% reduction to all enemies, all type res. So that's basically you're gonna do 20% more damage to all the enemies regardless of their weakness type, which is a really, really good skill to have. But the main takeaway from this, of course, is not the damage, the extra damage that you're getting from that. It's honestly the 9 points, and this is so vital for her because you basically need to get the 9 slash dreams to 9 points to get her ult every single time. So the more debuffs you're getting, the more slash dreams you're getting, which in turn gives you that ultimate faster. So you're gonna need 9 points with that. And then it probably gets into it right here, so I'll read this off as well. So when any unit inflicts a debuff on the enemy target while using an ability, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 Crimson Knot on the enemy target. So yeah, so you're gonna get more Crimson Knots, which in turn gives you more damage with the ultimate, and then you also get the Slash Dream, which is just basically you apply any debuff with a Nihility character, and that's how you get a Slash Dream. And you get, once you get 9 Slash Dreams, you're able to get the ultimate. So that's how that works. Hopefully that made sense for you guys. I know this is a lot of information. Of course, we're going over the spreadsheet, but hopefully that makes sense the way I explained it. So we'll read the rest right here. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time per action. If the used ability inflicts a debuff on multiple enemies, 1 stack of Crimson Knot will be inflicted on the enemy with the most Crimson Knot stacks. So when you apply more and more debuffs on multiple enemies, the Crimson on multiple enemies, the Crimson Knot will be inflicted on the enemy with the most Crimson Knot stacks. So basically what that means is that whoever has the most Crimson Knot stacks already, it's just going to keep applying it to them. So when you do the ultimate, you know, whoever has that amount of Crimson Knots on them, that enemy is just going to be completely wiped out because they're going to have the most damage done onto them, as we saw with the ult and what the Crimson Knot does with that. And then we'll read this final thing right here. When Acheron is on the battlefield and after an enemy target leaves the battlefield or is defeated, their Crimson Knot stacks will be transferred to the enemy target with the most current Crimson Knot stacks. So say you defeat an enemy and it's like a smaller, weaker enemy and they had the most Crimson Knot stacks on them and you weren't using the ult yet or something like that, all the rest of the Crimson Knot stacks will then be applied onto another opponent, I believe, with the also the most Crimson Knot stacks. Yeah. So you're gonna just be transferring all these Crimson Knot stacks over, carrying them over, so that when you do use the ultimate, it will get rid of them all, and then you could just do way more damage with the ultimate, depending on how many Crimson Knot stacks you have on that certain opponent, if that makes sense. So now we'll get into her technique. I'm sure you guys know about this as well. We actually saw this in the 2.1 live stream that Honkai Star Rail did. So what her technique does, very, very cool technique. I'm going to be using this a lot, especially in the overworld as well as the simulated universe. And what it does is it immediately attacks the enemy and gains quadrivalent ascendance at the start of every wave, dealing lightning damage equal to 200% of Acheron's attack to all enemies and reduces the toughness of all enemies, irrespective of weakness types. When inflicting weakness break, triggers the lightning weakness break effect. Quadrivalent Ascendance. The next time Acheron uses her ultimate, she gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single random enemy. So basically, if you use her technique when you're going into battle, you're going to already start off with 1 stack of Slash Dream and 1 stack of Crimson Knot, basically making your time to get to the next ultimate for her much quicker because you already start with a debuff. And also reduces the toughness of all enemies, as we just read in here, and then does damage at the start of every wave with the Quadrivalent Ascendance. So it's a really, really good kind of jump start as soon as you attack an enemy with it, if they are weak to lightning. But honestly, the main takeaway from this is this information. But honestly, the main takeaway from this is this information right here. So if you guys want to read this with me, if a normal enemy is attacked, they will be immediately defeated and will not enter combat. The technique point is not spent if the attack does not hit an enemy. And this is really, really good for overworld and simulated universe, because if you just want to breeze past enemies, say if you're in the simulated universe and you just don't want to, you know, attack all the little enemies before you get to the boss, just hit them with this. You will, of course, lose a technique point with it, and you obviously want to save those, especially for the boss fights. But you will use a technique point with it, of course, but you automatically kill that enemy, and then you therefore gain the blessing if you're in simulated universe from that said enemy, or if you're in the overworld, you will gain whatever kind of materials that enemy had. So it's a really, really nice technique that she has, but it's not as OP as other people might say it is, because of course it uses a technique point every time you use it. So you kind of got to use it sparingly in stuff like simulated universe, but in the overworld you can go crazy with this, because you can kind of just find skill points just, you know, laying around, or technique points, I'm sorry, laying around everywhere on the map in the overworld. So yeah, you could use this to farm in the overworld a lot, and it's really, really nice because you could just get a bunch of materials from that. So right here, we'll just look at her traces, and her first trace is called Thunder Core right here. And it says right here, when Rainblade from Acheron's ultimate hits enemy targets with Crimson Knot, her damage increases by 30%, stacking up to a maximum of 3 stacks and lasting for 3 turns. Also additionally deals 6 hits of damage when Stygian Research is triggered. Every hit deals lightning damage equal to 25% of Acheron's attack to a single enemy target and is viewed as ultimate damage. So this basically is talking about the more damage that she gets by applying the Crimson Knots that you get from using her skill and stuff like that, as well as other teammates that also apply debuffs and get the Crimson Knots from that as well. You're basically just going to get more damage when you have more of these Crimson Knots, as we already know. And then for that Stygian Research, which is that final hit with the ultimate, it also deals an extra 6 hits of damage when it is triggered, and every hit deals lightning damage equal to 25% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy, and that's viewed as ultimate damage. So yeah, you're gonna just be doing more damage when you have more of those Crimson Knots, as we know. And it's also kind of what the Stygian Research does. It deals an additional 6 hits of damage when it is triggered, and of course that's equal to 25% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy. And then for the second trace right here, the Abyss, okay, now this one is very, very important for her. When there are 1 or 2 other characters following the path of Nihility in the team, which you guys are going to be using, increases the damage of Acheron's basic attack, skill, and ultimate to 115% or 160% of the original damage. So the only way that you can get the 160% attack bonus to her basic attack, skill, and ultimate is if you run 2 Nihility characters alongside her. And there's actually a way to get through this, and you can still get the 160% damage boost while running only 1 Nihility character, because if you were to run her with 1 Nihility character and you don't have her E2, you only get 115% damage bonus to all those things. But if you actually have her E2, you could still run only 1 Nihility character and still get the 160% damage bonus, which is very, very good, especially if you guys are really wanting to get her E2. So I wish you guys luck on when you guys pull for her to try to get her E2, because that E2 is very, very nice to have, because then you don't have to run 2 Nihility characters alongside her. And then we'll look at her third trace right here. So her third trace is called Red Oni, and then when the battle starts, immediately gains 5 points of Slash Stream and applies 5 stacks of Crimson Knot to a random enemy. When Slash Stream reaches its upper limit, for every point Slash Stream that exceeds the limit, gains 1 stack of Quadrivalent Ascendance, increases the maximal stackable count for Quadrivalent Ascendance to 3. And we read before that the Quadrivalent Ascendance kind of does damage every wave, so obtains stacks of Slash Stream corresponding to Quadrivalent Ascendance after using the ultimate. At the same time, applies a corresponding amount of Crimson Knot stacks to a random enemy up to 3 stacks. So yeah, that is kind of what that does. This is a very, very good trace. It's really, really good for kind of a jump start in the battle, because you already start with 5 points of Slash Stream and 5 stacks to Crimson Knot to a random enemy. Which is really, really nice to have, because you're going to get that ultimate faster, and you're also going to be having more damage to whatever enemy has that Crimson Knot on them. You're just going to be doing a lot more damage to that enemy. And then when you apply more debuffs, say if you keep applying debuffs but you don't have her ultimate yet, then those stacks right there will go into Quadrivalent Ascendance, which will just give you more damage basically. But mainly you want to go for her ultimate first, then her talent, then her skill, and obviously you'll save that basic attack for last. But that is what you want to have your priority on for her traces. You want to level up her ultimate, then her talents, and then her skill in that order. But now we're going to look at her Eidolons, and her Eidolons are very interesting. As we just mentioned before, her E2 is very, very special for her. It's very important if you guys happen to get it. Also, I love this screen right here of all of her Eidolons. Really, really cool looking. But besides that, we're going to look at all of her Eidolons right here. So her first Eidolon is kind of just a damage bonus that you get basically. It increases the crit rate by 18% when dealing damage to debuff enemies. So basically all your enemies that you're going to be attacking are going to be debuffed because you apply the debuffs with Acheron, and then you're going to be applying debuffs with the rest of your team, with the Nihility characters that you run alongside her. So you're basically just going to get more crit rate with her E1. Which is really, really nice to have. So really, really good E1 off rip. And then her second Eidolon here is what we kind of mentioned before, is the number of characters on the Path of Nihility required for the highest value of the trace of the Abyss, which is the one we mentioned before, which is the 160%, is reduced by 1. At the beginning of Acheron's turn, gains 1 point of Slash Stream, and additionally inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on an enemy with the most Crimson Knot. So not only is that trace that we saw before, the Abyss, is now reduced to only 1 Nihility character that you need to run alongside her to get that 160 damage bonus to all of her basic attack, her skill, and her ultimate. Now that's reduced by 1, so you only have to run one of them to get that 160% damage bonus. So on top of that trace right here being reduced by 1 for that 1 character that you do not need at that point, you also gain 1 point of Slash Stream and 1 stack of Crimson Knot on the enemy with the most Crimson Knot, and this happens at the beginning of Acheron's turn. So every time she gets her turn, she applies another debuff with her E2 here. So yeah, her E2 is really, really good. If you get her E1, I'm sure you'll be very happy too. I'll be very happy if I get her E1. But her E2 is just absolutely insane. It's definitely her best E2, especially because of where it's at. You don't really need to go super far in for her to be really good. You kind of just need her E2 for her to be like really, really, really good for you, for basically your best DPS, unless you have some other kind of crazy DPS that's already really well built. This E2 right here is just honestly probably the best E2 in the game, and being it's for Acheron, it just makes her so much stronger. With this E2, you're going to be getting your ultimate much faster, and then you're just going to be doing much more damage because you don't have to run another Nihility character in your team. You can run a Sparkle, so you can get more skill points for your team, so you can get more crit damage for Acheron, as well as bringing her up. I actually have a separate video of why Sparkle is going to be really good with Acheron, especially if you get this E2, because not only do you give her more crit damage and skill points, so you can always use that skill to inflict more debuffs, you also get the action advance forward, which is going to be just using that skill more and more and more, which in turn will give you a faster ult and do more damage with the crit damage buff you get from Sparkle. So yeah, so this E2 is really, really nice to have. Her E3 is nothing special right here, just the ultimate and basic attack level bonus. And then her E4 right here is when enemy targets enter combat, makes them vulnerable to the ultimate damage, increasing the amount of damage they take from the ultimate damage by 8. So yeah, basically just another damage bonus for her ult. Pretty nice E4, nothing too crazy as much as her E2, but really, really nice to have as well, especially if you get an E4. And then her E5 is just same thing again, you just get more levels for her skill as well as her talent. And then her E6 is really, really cool as well if you happen to get her E6, which is really crazy if you do get her E6, especially if you're free to play. But I imagine the most people who get this are of course wailing for her, but it's going to be really, really good if you guys get this as well. And it increases the all type resistance penetration for the ultimate damage dealt by Acheron by 20%. So already in her kit does she already get the all type resistance penetration, but now you get an additional 20% to that. So you're just going to be, shredding these enemies much more. You're going to be doing a lot more damage, and the damage dealt by basic attack and skill will also be considered as ultimate damage and can reduce enemy toughness regardless of weakness types. When weakness is broken, triggers a lightning weakness break effect. So this is really, really good to have. Basically with this E6, you're just going to be doing a lot more damage on top of the amount of damage that she already does. So it's really, really crazy. If you get her E6, I mean, you're gonna have probably the best damaging character in the entire game. Because on top of the resistance penetration that she already gets, you get an additional 20% right here. Then all of her basic attack skill and all that stuff is going to be regarded as ultimate damage, and you do get more ultimate damage with one of her ultimates right here. You do get more damage from that. So now that all those are considered ultimate damage, you're going to be getting a lot more damage with that as well. And then it reduces the enemy's toughness regardless of weakness type. So you get the resistance penetration with this, and the enemy toughness reduction from that, regardless of their weakness types. And then when their weakness is actually broken, it triggers the lightning weakness break effect. So you're gonna be doing a lot more damage with this. If you can't already tell, her E6 is absolutely crazy. I would actually argue though that her E2 is way more important because it's way more viable and easier to get for free to play players, and it's really, really good if you guys have it. Personally, I'm gonna try to go for her E2 and Lightcone, but I don't know if I'll get obviously her E2. I'll probably get her Lightcone, but I don't know if I'll get her E2. If I do get her E2, I'll be very, very happy. But yeah, her E6 is absolutely crazy. So now we'll take a look at her signature Lightcones. I really recommend you guys trying to pull for her signature Lightcone because there's not many good options for her kind of Lightcones, especially because she's a Nihility character, but she hits more like a destruction character. So there's not many good, you know, viable kind of Lightcones for her, but her signature Lightcone, of course, is where that kind of fills that gap. Her signature Lightcone is going to be very, very good for her. So we're going to read it off right here. Her base HP, that's going to be for the Lightcone is going to be 1,058. It's going to have 635 attack, and it's going to have 397 defense, so pretty strong right there for the base stats. And then what it does is it increases the wearer's crit damage by 36%, so already it's very, very good. You get a 36% bonus to your crit damage, so really good already. And then when the wearer hits an enemy target and inflicts Mirage Fizzle on the enemy lasting for 1 turn. Each time the wearer attacks, this effect can only trigger 1 time on each target. The wearer deals 24% increased damage to targets afflicted with Mirage Fizzle, and the damage dealt by the wearer's ultimate additionally increases by 24%. So basically, you're going to get this Mirage Fizzle, or whatever they want to call it, every time you attack the enemy, and it lasts for 1 turn, and it can only trigger 1 time on each target. But if you do hit them with this, it will give a 24% increased damage when you hit them with the Mirage Fizzle, as well as the damage from the ultimate additionally increases 24% with this Mirage Fizzle that you apply. But it only lasts for 1 turn, but it does give you a lot more damage in that single turn. And then you also get that 24% more damage with the ultimate. So basically her signature Lightcone is really, really great for her. So I really highly recommend you guys try to pull for it. And of course, there is a 75-25% pity for this. So if you do actually start summoning for this and you get like 90 summons in, you do get a 75% chance to get this said Lightcone when the banner is out. So I really highly recommend you guys try to pull for this Lightcone for her. These are some other Lightcones that are going to be good for her as well if you guys don't end up pulling for Acheron's Lightcone. I believe this is Silver Wolf's. Then we also have this one right here. I'm not sure if this is a signature Lightcone for anyone else. This is this one right here, the Mirage of Reality. I'm not going to read this one out, but if you do end up getting this one or this one right here, it can be really good for her as well. But obviously her signature Lightcone is going to be definitely the best in slot Lightcone for her. But yeah, these 2 Lightcones can be very, very strong for her as well. These are some pros and cons of Acheron and kind of all that stuff. You guys could read this over as well. You could pause the video here if you guys want to read this over, but there's some good things to look at this. I already read this over, but there are some good things to look at this if you guys want to read this. Some other things that are kind of already mentioned in here as well, but some good information in this pros and cons section. And now her relics and ornament. This is actually pretty important because there is going to be a new simulated universe when 2.1 comes out, and it is going to have actually Acheron's best in slot relic ornament. And that's going to be this one right here. So yeah, this is going to be her new relic set, her 2-piece relic set that is going to be best for Acheron. It is called Izimo, Gods of Innumerable Misery, and Izimo, Blades of End and Beginning. They always name it some crazy shit. It's always mad long, but besides that, what it actually does is it increases the wearer's attack by 12% when entering the battle. So you're going to get always a 12% attack bonus you know, when you enter battle with this set on for the rest of the battle, which is really, really nice already. And then if at least one other ally follows the same path as the wearer, then the wearer's crit rate increases by 12%. So this is really, really good. Because obviously you're going to run other Nihility characters with Acheron, so obviously they're going to follow the same path, so obviously you're going to get the extra 12% crit rate for Acheron, which is going to be really, really nice for her. There actually is a few other sets here that might be really good for her. It's mainly this other set, the Sal Soto set. So say if you have a really good Sal Soto set, but you don't have a really good Izimo set, then you can still use this one. It can still be really, really good for her. But mainly, I think you guys, especially new players and stuff like that, you guys are going to be wanting to farm this new set that comes out for the new Simulated Universe, as it will be definitely her best two-piece relic set. Also, there's this other relic set that's going to be also releasing, which is really good for a bunch of other characters that are really good in pure fiction and stuff like that. So like Herda, Argenti, this set is going to be going really good for them. And this is her main set. I really don't recommend you guys try to farm this one. I think this one is way better. It's the Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters, and I actually have a separate video on my channel that goes into more depth. Kind of what you should be looking for when you do farm this relic set in terms of what stats you guys should look for. I will read off what the 2-piece and 4-piece stat bonuses give you. But besides that, I will put a link to that video also in the description if you guys want to check out the video for that, for what you should do for her relics. But the 2-piece right here increases the damage dealt to enemies with debuff by 12%, and obviously you're going to have debuffs on all the enemies pretty much at all times, so you will get a 12% attack bonus with that pretty much all the time from the 2-piece. And then for the 4-piece, it increases the crit rate by 4%, so you always have increased 4% crit rate, which is nice. And then when the wearer deals 8 or 12% increased crit damage to enemies with at least 2 to 3 debuffs. So say if an enemy has 3% debuffs, you will get a 13% or a 12% crit damage to enemies. And then if you have 2 debuffs, then you get the 8% crit damage to the enemies. And then after the wearer inflicts a debuff on enemy targets, the aforementioned effects increase by 100%, lasting for 1 turn. So basically you're going to get a little bit more damage with this set, more crit rate with this set, only a little bit more crit rate, and then you do get more crit damage with this set depending on how many debuffs they get. So overall, this is a really, really great set for Acheron. It's definitely her best, I believe. I really don't believe that this one is nearly as good, honestly. But I really believe that you guys should definitely try to get this set right here. And also it kind of looks like Acheron would wear it because she has these kind of like red flower things too. It kind of looks like she'd wear it, but yeah, this set is definitely the best set, I would say, for Acheron. These are some possible teams for her E0, E0 S1, and her E2 S1. So this is her E0 Acheron, best team for free to play. So if you guys are summoning on the banner, then you can get copies of Pela. If you don't have Silverwolf, then it's fine, but you could run it with another character, maybe like Sampo if you have that, because there are some other Nihility options that are pretty free to play, like a Gwenhyphen 2, as we see down here. Gallagher is actually going to be really, really nice with Acheron, and he's actually going to be on the banner alongside Pela. So you can get a really nice team if you just purely summon Acheron's banner for her, because Gallagher is an abundance character, so he heals your team, but then he also applies debuffs. Pela applies debuffs with her ultimate, and if you have her E4, it also applies debuffs with her skill. And then Silverwolf kind of applies ultimates all around with her skill and ultimate and slows the enemy down. So yeah, this is a really, really great free-to-play team. And this is also an alternative team for Acheron. You're gonna have Sparkle here, and then Pela and Gallagher instead of the Silverwolf up there. Of course, we mentioned before why Sparkle can be really, really nice for Acheron because of the advanced action forward, the crit damage buff, and then providing skill points for the rest of your team, so she can always get her debuff with her skill, and then the rest of these characters can also use their skill. But yeah, these are gonna be just some more teams. I won't go to too much in depth of the rest of these teams and why they're going to be meta, because I kind of already explained before why some of these teams can be really good. But I'm sure you guys will figure out a great team to run with them as well. I'm kind of going to be running a team like this right here from my account personally. I might get Gallagher, and if I do get Gallagher, I might build him up so I can have this exact team here, because he does apply debuffs with his whatchamacallit, with his kind of kit. But if I don't get Gallagher, I could just run my Jeopard, and then my Jeopard actually can have the universal trend of the markets Lightcone, which actually inflicts a debuff when he gets attacked. So Jeopard can actually use that Lightcone and get extra debuffs if I do decide to run him with Acheron. This is pretty important. We'll actually look at this right here. So yeah, this is going to be some of the damage you're going to get from certain teams and how much damage you're going to get per cycle depending on what kind of version you have of Acheron. If you have her E0, S0, or if you have her E0, S1, and then so on and so forth up to E6, S5 if you get that as well. But yeah, these are just some damage cycles, and depending on what kind of teams you have. So you can pause the video right here, guys, if you want to see some extra information. This is the Lightcone comparison. Obviously, that's her main Lightcone. You can see it's a decent amount above the rest of her kind of alternative Lightcone options for Nihility characters. But yeah, her main Lightcone is definitely going to be the best. And since for my account, I really don't have good Nihility Lightcones, I'm definitely going to be summoning to try to get her main Lightcone. So yeah. And then in terms of the Izumo Gensei set compared to the Inert Salsodo, it's not as much of a difference between the Lightcones. The Inert Salsodo set, as we mentioned before, can still be really good with her if you have a really good Inert Salsodo set. But the Izumo Gensei set, of course, is a little bit better if you happen to get them maxed out and all that stuff. And then this is, of course, the Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters, the Relic sets comparison. Obviously, that set is going to be the best for her, and yeah, and not as much as a close difference between here, but it's definitely, I think, going to be the best Relic set for her that you guys should be farming. So yeah, and then there's just some more information here from the private server testing. And yeah, it's actually all the information, guys. So yeah, I really hope all this information was really helpful. I tried to go into much depth as I can, and tried to read off everything as much as I could, but I really hope all this information helped. I'm really excited to pull for Acheron, as you guys probably know. So definitely like and subscribe if you guys want to see future Acheron content and kind of my team and how I'm going to be running her alongside my Sparkle, my Japard with that debuff Lightcone, and all that good stuff like that. But I really hope this video helped you guys kind of figure out all the stuff you should be farming and all the kind of information you guys should know about her kit. And this is the most up-to-date actual Acheron guide that they have right here. So this is probably all the information that's going to be coming out with her kit. They might change a few things, you never know, because it's always subject to change. But most likely this is going to be all the same information that she'll come out with when she really comes out in the game on the banner. But yeah, this is kind of just all the information laid out in one. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have more Honkai Star Rail content on my channel if you guys want to check that out as well. And yeah, definitely like and subscribe if you guys want to see more of my Honkai Star Rail content. I really thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it helped a lot. And yeah, guys, Zoc out.